In today's tutorial, we're going to look at how to use Google's AI Studio to generate Flutterflow code. We're going to start with an image created by AI in Stitch. We're going to use Vibreflow to convert that into Flutterflow code. We're going to insert that into Flutterflow, including the AI generated parameters. We're going to make a couple of changes in cursor, and we're going to end up with a pixel perfect custom widget representation of that image. Now, in a future video, I am likely to do a training course on how to create your own AI Studio Flutterflow code converter, but for the purposes of this video, we're going to use mine. Now, I've made mine available publicly at the following URL: Vibreflow.com. So that's publicly available for you to use. Now, when you first come into this, it's going to ask you for your Gemini API key. Now, I can rest assured you that this is held as a local variable. It is not sent up to the cloud. Now, if you want to run this whole project locally, just because you are very concerned about any kind of security issues, then that code is available on my resources page in its entirety for you to download and run locally if you want to. So look at the link below in this YouTube video and you'll find a link to the resources page if you want to do that. But for the time being, we're just going to put in my API key over here, and it'll take you straight into this particular screenshot. Now, this is an unbelievably simple process. So what we're going to do is we simply do as it says. We're going to go over and we're going to choose an image of a custom widget that we want the application to create for us. Okay, so we open that and it'll start generating the code. Now, this is a two-step process, so the process number one is to generate the Flutter code. All right, once it's done that, and it will show us over here what the image that we're trying to convert is, we do the second phase, which is to convert to Flutterflow. And here we see the all-familiar code of Flutterflow. Now, what I want to draw your attention to immediately is what this application has done, which, for instance, the built-in Flutterflow one does not do. It has picked out the variables, the parameters within that image that it thinks it should assign to be dynamic. So that is a really key point, and we can copy that code now and put that directly into Flutterflow. All that leaves us to do now is to create a new widget, and we're going to paste that code into it, and it is quite normal to see a lot of red in Flutterflow at the beginning. Don't worry about that. What we do need to ensure is that product card widget there is given the same name as it is up here. Now, typically the convention is this should be in camel case here. Now you can see that it's gone through and it's not removed a lot of red. That normally takes a few seconds. Now we have got rid of all the red. Now, on occasions, you're going to find that there are some small errors here. Now, I do emphasize that this is a two-stage process. The first process is to get the design into Flutterflow, and a pixel-accurate design into Flutterflow. And the second one is then to take that into Cursor and either iron out the small bugs, continue with the development on that, perhaps adding some callbacks and actions to it. But at this point, we don't seem to have any red whatsoever, so we can immediately go on to Save Widget. Now, this is the brilliant part of this application. It says the parameter settings are not identical to the code we've provided, so we do accept that, and look what happens. Over here on the right-hand side, it has extracted from that particular form all the parameters that it thinks should be dynamic, and it has put them into the right-hand side without a single piece of typing. So we now have our complete product widget. We're going to go and test that. We might just be advised to use this little button up here, which is to check the code for errors. It does take a few minutes, so I'll put it on pause while it does, and then we're going to insert that into a page and run that in a test to see how it looks. Okay, all seems good. We've got a tick over there, so we're now going to go across to my home page here. Now I've got a test home page. I've been doing a lot of other tests on using this application to create custom widgets. I'm going to add this one here down at the bottom. So we're going to add to that. We're going to add our widget, and there it is at the where is it? Product card widget. And we can see down here we've got a load of different parameters that we can change. Now we're going to change total price to be, say, 20 on that one, and we are going to change seller name to be, let's just call it Charlie, just to prove in this case that the dynamic aspect of it works. We're now going to run that in a test environment. Now, my preferred test environment by a long measure is the one that is built into the desktop version of it. I don't know, but I think you'll find that this one up here can be a bit slow at times. Now we've got a couple of very minor things. We're going to do the width. The width can be infinite, which will be the size of the container in which it is contained. The height, let's give that plenty of room to fill out. We'll put that in 400, and we still seem to have an error. The height not specified. I've just done that. There we go. Now, it really is quite important that if you were working initially there in the web version, that we switch to the desktop version, which I'm doing now. This is really important because the desktop version has features in it that we are now going to use, particularly opening the project in Cursor and carrying on with our vibe coding. But for these purposes here, I'm going to use it because I want to run this in the test environment locally. And yes, you could use the lightning rod up here. It's not been working terribly well recently, some of you may find, but I'm going to run this here in Chrome. What I will do is just add an image URL over here, which I've got from Pixum. And I want to draw your attention to the fact we've got an in stock button going on over here that is unchecked. So let's go and have a look at that. Let's render that. And this is what we get. Now, personally, I think that is absolutely remarkable. Now, I'm going to point out a couple of things that the AI has done here. The first one, you see over here that we've got the out of stock button. Now, that wasn't in the image. It has intelligently worked out that is what we want to do. So if I just take that to one side at the moment and I change that back into in stock and I come across, I refresh that. Let's come over here. We're doing all this dynamically, which is the beauty of having it running locally. We're going to refresh it, and it's in stock. Not only has it done that, look at these buttons here are actually incrementing correctly. And as you get to 1 and hit the minus, it stops. Now, I did not tell the AI to do that. It's gone one step further. So looking at the code here, you can see that it's done a couple of really brilliant things. Firstly, if we scroll down, we're going to find that it has implemented the in stock and out of stock. It has decided to do that for itself, which I think is absolutely brilliant. And if we look a bit further over here, we'll see that it has generated the code to increment the quantity. Incredible. Now, I did say that this was a two-step process, and the second step of this process is to continue vibe coding this custom widget, and also, if necessary, to take out any of the errors that may have been generated originally by Vibreflow, or make some changes. And I think some of the changes that I want to make is that you're going to see that in here we've got certain fields here put in the string as total price is put in as a string. We clearly want that to be in as a double. Another thing that I note is that whilst it was very clever at putting in the quantity that was selected by the user by incrementing that field, it hasn't actually put the quantity as an accessible parameter over here. So we've got to make some changes. Now, I don't want to do those changes by hand. Even changing the string into a double just here straight into Flutterflow, it may have repercussions later on in the code. So what I'm going to do instead, and this is why the desktop version is so important, is that I'm going to come over here and I am going to open my project in Cursor. Now, in my case, all I need to do is to go into the developer section and say open in VS Code. In my case, it'll actually open that in Cursor. But if yours doesn't and opens it in VS Code, then you really need to go, and you can let it open in VS Code. You really need to find out where that local version of the Flutterflow code is being held. Just before I go across and tell you where it's almost certainly going to be, you can see that it has opened up Cursor. You can tell it's Cursor by this icon. Otherwise, it looks virtually identical to VS Code, and its operations are virtually identical. It's based on it. And you can see that we've got our project in here. Now, if it did open up in VS Code and you need to then go and up it in Cursor, you need to know where this file is actually held. The answer to that question is just hover over any of the items in VS Code. You'll be in VS Code doing this, and have a look at the local address of where that file is held. Open up in Cursor, go to that directory, and you will get to the same place as I am now. Now, in Cursor, we need to navigate to our custom widget, and our custom widget was called product card widget.dart, and make sure that that is what is displayed over here in the code editor. Okay, so this is where the fun really starts. What we want to do is we want to change some of these price per unit, total price, certainly those two, into doubles. So we go over here to the agent and we ask the agent to do that. What is important is to ensure that it will automatically do this usually, but that the particular widget that you're looking at, the code that it's looking at, is in the context window up here. It'll do that automatically. But if it's not there, or you want to add another one, perhaps you want it to look at two files at the same time, you can add more files to the context window up there. Okay, simple enough prompt. Edit the code so that the price per unit and total price are doubles, and check the code throughout that these changes are reflected. There we go, these changes are reflected. And let's give that a spin. Okay, it's come up with several suggestions here of what we should do, and I'm not going to accept them all because we need to be a little bit careful here. Remember that this local version that we've got, even if I save it here, it will not be reflected in Flutterflow itself. This is a copy or an image of it. Therefore, although we can play around with product card widget here and see the changes, we really do not want to be playing around with other parts of the application, and particularly the home page. It is actually correct to say that once I have applied these changes and copied them across to Flutterflow, which I'll do in a minute, we're going to see an error because we've changed the string into a double. But anyway, for the time being, we're going to accept only changes to the product card widget. So we'll accept that one, and it'll make that change. This one is to home page, so we will not change that. And it's obviously gone and had a look at another widget that I've created, and we're not going to accept that. So we are going to reject the others. So back in Flutterflow, Control A, Control V to copy it in. Now, there's actually a bug in Flutterflow at the moment. The desktop version, the editor's not working very well, so I've had to swap back to the web version for that to paste this in. We've now changed that to doubles, and we'll save it. It's got to change the parameters again, which is great. It's going to do that for us. But I think you're going to find we're going to have some errors, and the errors are not going to be here. They're going to be in the rendering, in the home page. Now interestingly enough, there aren't any errors, but I'm still going to go across and check. Okay, it seems to have dealt with the problem gracefully. You can see we've got our total price has been put in here. It is now as a double, and our price per unit is as a double. Let's just put that in as 12, just so that we can see that is working or not. And let's now refresh the application over here and go and see whether it has continued to work for us. And it has. There we've got $12.20. Everything seems to be working fine. I think I might have said somewhere that we were missing the parameter up here that indicates the quantity. I didn't mean that. What I meant is that we've really missing the ability to be able to pass that value out of the widget into something else, which for instance could be the shopping cart or something like that. So yes, we are missing a parameter, but what we're actually missing is an action. Okay, so we're going to ask Cursor now to add an action that we will attach to the plus and minus button so that when they are clicked, the action will return the value that is now in that quantity field. So I'm going to construct a prompt that requests Cursor to do that now. Okay, so this is the prompt I've come up with. Create a Flutterflow action in the form of XXX, and I'll explain that in a minute, that returns the quantity field and attach the trigger for that action to the plus and minus fields of the widget. Now in XXX, I'm going to give this a helping hand by going across to Flutterflow and giving it the format that Flutterflow likes, because I have noticed that quite a lot of these models come up with something else. So we're going to give it a helper, and I'm going to show you how to do that. We're going to go back into Flutterflow, and we are going to add the parameter here, only to get the format of it. And I'm going to explain why. So we're going to put the name of that in here, and we're going to call it action quantity, and the type of that is going to be an action, and we're going to add a parameter to that, which is the quantity, and we're going to return that quantity as an integer. Now, we're going to use this button up here to overwrite all our code. Oh no, are we really going to do that? Yes, we are, but what we're going to do is we're going to copy that line over there, Control C, and then I'm going to cancel and discard the current changes because I don't actually want it to do it that way. And I'm going to go back into Cursor, and I'm going to give it that clue as to the format in which we want it in. So the final prompt looks like create a Flutterflow action in the form, and we've taken that from the code boilerplate from Flutterflow that returns the quantity field and attach the trigger for that action to the plus and minus fields of the widget. Let's give that a shot. Okay, it has done the code that we want. This time we are going to accept everything it's done on there, accept the file, and we do now still need to copy this up to Flutterflow, although I'm going to show you in a minute how you don't always have to do that, but we are in this particular case, so we'll Control A, C, and copy that back in. Okay, we've now got our future function in here, along with all the other code is there, and we save that, and again it's got picked up the fact that we've got a new parameter. We say yes to that, and we save it. Now, to know whether the code has actually triggered a callback, we can now go back into the widget itself here, and we're going to see at the bottom we've now got an action flow editor there, and what we'll do, and the callback there is we're going to add let's do a snack bar on this one, I think, and the value in the snack is going to be the callback parameter, which is the quantity, and we're going to confirm that. We'll then reload the application over here and go and take a look to see what has happened over here. And as we can see, we've got our plus and minus, plus, number 2, number 3, back down to 2. Can we go minus 1? No, we can't go beyond -1. So the logic is all fantastically laid out for us now. A lot of what we would require now would basically be a case of rinse and repeat. We'd probably want to add an action to the save for later, an action for remove, but I'm not going to show you how to do that because fundamentally it's exactly the same. Come up with the prompt, go across and give it a little helper by using the recommended boilerplate code from Flutterflow, put that into your prompt, and lo and behold, let Cursor take care of the rest. Okay, we are very nearly at the end of this tutorial, but there is one more thing that I I believe is important to know, and that is how to turn static code into lists. Now, what I've done on my main page over here is I've now made visible a lot of other tests that I've been doing over the last few days. So we're just going to refresh that and go and take a look at those. Okay, so what do we have here? We have a far more complex shipping form here, which was done almost entirely in Vibreflow. But there was one really key aspect that needed to be done in Cursor, and that was turning this product here into a static view, into a list. Apart from that, there are other things that it did automatically, which I found absolutely brilliant. It automatically created these radio buttons so that they were functional, along with the PayPal. It didn't use any kind of static layout, which is what Flutterflow would have done in its built-in AI converter. It added some hints here that weren't there, but what it could not do is take this static area here and turn it into a list. So we'll do that in a minute. We'll just have a look at a couple of other things. This again is another version of the one that we looked at, not the same one as the one that I did earlier, just to test it out. And this is the one that was generated by Flutterflow. I think the major difference here is that this doesn't have any of the parameters wired up. You're going to have to go through a whole nother process if you use the widget that's generated. I mean, both of them did a reasonably good job, but ultimately the Vibreflow application, it puts in more design aspects, it's more accurate, and it puts in functionality as well. Let's not worry about that one or that one or that one. And this was the one that we've just been working on. So let's very quickly go and have a look at how you turn a static representation of, say, product items into a list. So for that, we're going to convert another image, and the image that we're going to choose this time is going to be that hugely complex one, which is the checkout one over here. I prefer JPEG, by the way, to ping. Open up and convert that, do the two-stage process, and we'll look at the code, and I'll tell you how to change that code in a second. Okay, so let's copy that code and put that into Cursor. Actually, let's put it into Flutterflow first. New widget, paste it in. Just look at the number of parameters that it's extracted there, and there are no errors, so we can save the widget, and the parameter settings may not match, so yes, and look at all that typing it saved, but that's not the point of this. What we're going to do is we're going to go and into that code in Cursor, and we're going to change the static view of that into the static list into a dynamic list. So if you remember rightly, to get this new code into Cursor, one needs to refresh the test version up in the desktop version of Flutterflow. You can tell Cursor knows that there are changes because you can see some activity going on here. There it is, a checkout screen widget. Let's quickly render this in the test version so that we can see how it looks. There we go, add the checkout widget screen. Refresh. Wrong button, I meant refresh. And there it is. I mean, that in itself is utterly remarkable in terms of the representation of that form. But you can see over here that these are static, and we need to convert those into a list. Apart from looking at the code, the reason why we know that that's not been generated as a list, we've got product title 1, product title 2, image path 3. They're all set up as individual elements and not as a list. So let's convert that into a list, shall we? Within the code, we therefore need to go and find where we think those static elements are, just to give Cursor a clue about what it's trying to convert. It would help I was looking at the right code, but you can see over here in the checkout screen widget, we've got the children here that are statically put in between that square bracket and the square bracket below it. So that is what we need to instruct Cursor to change into a dynamic list, and I'm going to show you the prompt that worked for me. Okay, so here's the prompt I'm going to use. On around line 243, that is where the children are over here, we have 3 static items. We want, correct that, we want this to be provided as a list. We want the widget to accept 4 lists, one for image path, another for title, and another for size, strings, and another for price double. Create these 4 parameters as lists. Add the price field in the design below the side, default to 10. You might have noticed that in the design that we had, the price was missing here, and I thought we would use this opportunity to add it. So let's see what happens when we ask it to do that. Okay, it claims to have done this. It doesn't seem to... yeah, let's accept that. I've made a mistake. Notice how I didn't check that I had the right code in the context. So I am going to restore the checkpoint from that. This time I'm going to ensure that we have the right context. So you see it's suggesting the wrong one. So we need to put out checkout underscore screen widget.dart. So that is now looking at the correct file. We are going to use the same prompt, and we're going to put that in there. A little proviso on that: only change the product screen widget. There we go. Only make changes to, and I put the @ sign and selected that, so we were double clear. Now let's try that. Okay, I'm a lot happier by what it looks like it's done, because at least it's applying edits to the right file, and we can we've copied that in. Now what I'm going to do in this case is to copy that file back up into Flutterflow, because I don't trust that there aren't significant amount of changes in the main setup of the home page not to warrant that. Okay, we like it when it's picked up that the parameters are different. So we put that in, yes. And we've got product titles, product sizes, and product prices, and beautiful, they're lists. Go back to the setup here, because otherwise we're going to have nothing to show if we don't give it a list. So let me do that. And look at that, we have now injected or created a list out of these products here. So this really is now a very functional checkout form that could be used in a project. Really quite remarkable, this combination of using Vibreflow and Cursor to create nearly pixel perfect Flutterflow custom widgets. Absolute game changer in my opinion. If you have enjoyed watching this video and have learned something, please do subscribe to my channel. It really does oil the wheels of progress, and my next video may well be how to use AI Studio from Google to create your own version of Vibreflow. So if you want to learn how to do that, do subscribe and stay tuned. Thank you for listening, and thank you for watching. Now, I did just mention that you don't always need, when you're working within Cursor, to take the values, to take the new code here and copy that back up into Flutterflow, into your custom function, not every single time. And I'll explain, it's really very, very simple, because within Cursor, you're able to run your application in a test mode that is using the code that it is accessing on your local drive. So if we run that without debugging, you'll see that we can also render the widget in a test mode, except, as I say, this one's using the local version, which means that if I make a change to the local version down here, it will be reflected in this one. And just to be absolutely clear, do I actually have 2 versions of this running at the same time? The answer is yes, I do, which might be confusing, but one of them is showing the local version and the other is showing the Flutterflow version. So the point really being is that if I put this one to one side, this is the local version that is running from the cursor, is that I can now make changes. I'll put that to one side within this code and they'll be immediately reflected over there. So I might come up with a very simple alteration to make. Change the in-stock color icon from green to blue. And just to tell you how miraculous that is, I haven't even accepted the changes yet. and it has done so. It has changed it from green to blue. I can now clearly accept the changes, accept file, for that to become permanent. And you can see that I haven't needed to copy that code back up to Flutterflow to do so. Now, obviously, when I've finished playing around and doing all my vibe coding with this custom widget, I am then going to need to copy that code from Cursor back up into Flutterflow. Now, there is actually a way that it's provided by Flutterflow of pushing the code from Cursor or VS Code back up into Flutterflow. But for me, it's not working at the moment, and it's also on one of the higher costing plans. So I'm not going to even tell you how to do that. We're going to just assume that copying and pasting is simple to comprehend and simple to do. Now, finally, there is one other fairly incredible thing that is worth pointing out about doing this technique. Remember, we're now looking at the local version of the Flutterflow here. Now, I'm going to put that to one side for a second, and I'm going to open up Flutterflow again, and I'm going to make a change, not to the custom code. I'm going to change the widget itself. All right, so the product cart widget there, we had that image there. We're going to change that from Charlie into berries. I think it was a picture of strawberries or something. We're going to change that. Now I'm going to refresh the Flutterflow version of that, and I'm quickly, when it does that, come across to over here to Cursor. You see that something's going on here. It has recognized the fact that the base code has actually changed. So in the new version of the Flutterflow rendering of the widget, we can see that we now have I'm sorry, I've got the wrong one. It can get confusing. We now have berries going on over here. However, if we refresh the one in Cursor, it will also reflect the changes of the main code. So in other words, we are actually, both of these two test versions are looking at the same code. If you want to update your Cursor with the code that you've changed in Flutterflow, you need to refresh the local version, and that will be reflected in your Cursor version as well, because they're the same copy. Now, that might take a little bit of getting your head around, but it's an important little tip that in actual fact, you don't need to necessarily always copy the code back up into Flutterflow. You can use the test version of the application within Cursor, and if you want to get the new updates from what you're doing into Flutter into Cursor, then simply refresh the local version of the Flutter test, and that will be reflected. It's a little tip. You may not want to use it. It may sound complicated, but I assure you it's a great time saver.